am Dr. Anuradha. I am from Davangere. And today my presentation is embryology and development of female reproductive system. And I am mainly focusing the development of the uterus, cervix, and the vagina. The female reproductive system develops from the like it is the development of the uterus, cervix, and the vagina and the external genitalia. And I will be covering all these aspects and the simple applied clinical aspects as well. The development starts from what is called as paramesonephric duct, that is the tissue, the cells which are close to the mesonephrons, and it is influenced by the absence of anti-Mullerian hormones. So in male, there is AMH, which will lead to the regression of the paramesonephric duct, means it will develop into the male reproductive system. But there is absence of anti-Mullerian hormone, which will lead to the development of the female reproductive organs. And it mainly starts at the 5th and the 6th week of intrauterine life. And it is most of them is derived from the intermediate mesoderm. So if you see this diagram, so this is the early embryo, and this is the central neural tube or the neuroaxial axis, and the tissues, the cells which are close to that is called as mesonephrons. This is the intermediate mesoderm, and the cells which are close to that, they develop into the mesonephrons, and the cells adjacent it to lead to paramesonephric tissues. So that's why the development of the kidneys and the development of the uterus and the cervix is closely related. And if there is any abnormality of the uterus and the cervix, there could be abnormality of the kidneys as well. The paramesonephric duct or the Mullerian duct, it mainly gives rise to uterus, the cervix, and the upper 1/3 of the vagina. And lower 2/3 of the vagina is by the sinovaginal bulb, which I'll be explaining you. So some of the books also mentioned that is upper 2/3 and lower 1/3, but most of the books mentioned upper 1/3 is paramesonephric duct and the lower 2/3 by sinovaginal bulb. Now, how this gets differentiated, the different tissues are derived. So mainly the firstly is the cell specification, that is cells differentiation. So what I showed earlier, the cells next to the mesonephrons get specified. So they get differentiated. They are pluripotent stems, they are stem cells, and they get differentiated into the paramesonephron cells. And then it becomes invagination and elongation. I will be explaining this. So the once cells get differentiated, so this is the coelomic epithelium. Okay, so the coelomic epithelium breaks down and these cells invaginate here, and this becomes the paramesonephric duct. So the either side, this is the one side, then there is another side. So this is the one and this is the another. So these cells get differentiated and they become the duct. So the free end part of the paramesonephric ducts becomes the fimbrial end, which gets connected to the abdominal cavity. Initially, it is an indifferentiated stage. That is, there is no difference between the male and the female. So both the reproductive systems are developed. Because of the presence of AMH and testosterone, the mesonephric duct. So this is the mesonephric duct. The duct which is adjacent to it is paramesonephric duct. Because of the absence of the AMH and testosterone, it develops into paranephric duct. The mesonephric duct degenerates. So both the ducts on either side, they get connected to each other and it becomes a uterovaginal canal. So this is called as uterovaginal canal, and this gets fused mainly in the center, and the fusion starts from above downwards. The fusion starts from above downwards. So it is firstly both the sides fuse in the lower part, and then slowly the cavity appears, and slowly the upper part also gets fused. So am I clear so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the fused uterovaginal canal gets connected with the lower part called as sinovaginal node, and this is developed from the urogenital tissue, so which I'll be showing you again. Any questions so far? Anything you want me to make clear?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So the Wolffian duct which was there, or the mesonephric duct which was developed, it gets regressed and this becomes the Gartner duct, so which is there next to the uterus. The fusion, that is the uterovaginal canal, becomes both the sides, the right and the left side, become fused around 7 to 8 weeks, begins at 7 to 8 weeks and gets completed by 12th week. And body and cervix differentiate by 10th week and gets completed by around 20th week. And the endometrial canal and the endometrial cavity and the glands will appear around the 2nd trimester. The attachments of the uterus and the cervix mainly develop from what is called as the urogenital mesentery. So this is the peritoneal fold which attaches the other organs to the lateral pelvic wall. And some of these cells get differentiated, becomes a genital ligament, and they give rise to round ligament and the ovarian ligament. So the round ligament comes from the lower abdominal, anterior abdominal wall and get attached just to the labium majus, and the ovarian ligament to the uterus and the ovary. So any questions so far? Anything you want me to make clear?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Development of the vagina, it is the formation of the vagina is from the 2 parts. So that is the upper part is the uterovaginal canal. The lower part is the lining of the urogenital membrane. This is called urogenital membrane. And some of those cells get differentiated and they become as sinovaginal bulb. So the meeting of the uterovaginal canal with the sinovaginal bulb is called as the vaginal plate. And this becomes canalized. So the whole thing becomes canalized around 21st week, and this resulting in the vagina. So this is the diagram which I got from the Jeffcott gynecology book. So this is the part of the cloaca, that is the hindgut. So there is this is what is called as something which comes here, the rectal septum. So this differentiate the hindgut from the urogenital system, and the forward one becomes the bladder, and the lower part, the Mullerian duct comes and attaches, and then it becomes the lower part of the vagina. So this and this gets attached. So this becomes the vagina, and this part becomes kinked and becomes the urethra and the bladder. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the development of the external genitalia comes from what is called as the urogenital membrane. This is the lowermost membrane. And then this gets 3 folds differentiated, and the one which is most anterior becomes the genital tubercle, which gives rise to clitoris, and the 2 genital swellings which will give rise to labia majora, and the urethral fold will give rise to labia minora. I'll just show how it is. So initially this is the diagram just to show how this differentiation takes place. This is the lower part, that is the hindgut, and this gets divided. The cloaca gets divided, and this becomes the urorectal septum, and this becomes the anterior one becomes the urogenital sinus, which gives rise to the bladder and the lower part of the vagina, and the hindgut, the other lower portion becomes the primitive rectum. Yes, please. So the external genitalia develops from what is called as the genital swelling. This is the genital membrane, urogenital membrane, and there are some folds which appear here, and they get differentiated. The fold becomes more prominent in the later parts, and then the major one will give rise to labium majus, and the minor one will become the labia minora. Swelling. So this is how. So the anterior most part is the genital tubercle, which is the clitoris. and primitive urethral fold, which will give rise to the this one, your labia minora, and the genital swelling will give rise to the labia majora. So any clarification so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay. This is a brief introduction of the classification of Mullerian anomalies. When I started preparing, I was following the AFS classification of Mullerian anomalies, and Dr. Diveshri guided me for the new classification, that is ISHRAE classification. This is very simple. It is not. It is mainly on the anatomy. So the normal anatomy is U0, which is the normal uterus with the normal cavity and the normal fallopian tubes. The second one is the dysmorphic. So the main idea of this classification is mainly the anatomy, and the cervix and the vagina are separately classified. So everything is not included, because sometimes we see isolated vaginal problems, vaginal defects like septum. So this is separately classified. The minor element, only the difference in the cavities, the dysmorphic uterus. Here there is no architectural change, that is, there is no changes in the musculature. So only the cavity is changed, which is called as the dysmorphic uterus, or the T-shaped or the infantile. Whenever there is only the change in the cavities, U1. So it is graded according to the defect. Means the normal one is the U0, and the higher grades are U5. The septate is the next common or the next least defective. So this is only the inner part of the cavities, there is indentation. Either it is partial or the complete. In bicorporeal uterus, there is indentation of the myometrium as well. So depending on the severity of the indentation, it is graded as partial, complete, and bicorporeal. So in bicorporeal, the whole myometrium thickness is involved, and sometimes the cervix is also duplicated. The hemiuterus, or the rudimentary cavity with connecting or without rudimentary cavity connected. So this is the hemiuterus. And the least form is like whenever there is rudimentary cavity, and most abnormal things are classified as U5. Cervix and vagina, again, they are graded to C1, C0, C1, C2, depending on the level of abnormality. The incidences, the commonest of them is the septate uterus. Sorry, I have not put the arcuate. It's only the cavity change. Here it is the septum has some morphological changes as well. So it is the septum which is the commonest, followed by unicornate and bicornate. Some books give different figures, up to 10 to 15% difference. And didiphys and the uterine agencies are the least common. So what is the clinical significance of Mullerian anomalies? Mainly the patient can present with menorrhagia because of the large surface area, especially in bicornate or uterine didelphys. And they can be spasmodic dysmenorrhea, like in cases of unicornate uterus, or without communication. And they can, whenever there is a vaginal septum, they can even come with dyspareunia. And sometimes they can have infertility as well because of the septum, because of the inability to have sexual intercourse. And few of the patients can present with the recurrent abortions and preterm labor. Mainly it's due to the incompetent os, and malpresentation can be there because of the shape of the uterus. Sometimes it can lead to, because of the inefficient uterine contraction, it can lead to obstructed labor, and because there is a problem with the passage. The take-home message is Mullerian duct gives rise to uterus, cervix, tubes, and part of the vagina. And sinovaginal bulb gives rise to the vagina. And septate uterus is the commonest maldevelopment due to the non-resorption of the septum. Because when both the sides, the paramesonephric duct, they fuse from down to above. So sometimes there could be there is usually a resorption of the septum around second trimester, and if that septum persists, so we can see the septum in the fundal area. So basically it is in the upper part.